Welcome to Talking Grit, a Detroit Lions podcast. Talking Grit is brought to you by the Monroe County Reporters, Monroe's top news source for police, fire, and community events.
Depot Street, truck boy at request.
Follow them on Facebook, and for $2.99 a month, you can become a subscriber and get the news you crave even faster.
Welcome to Talking Grit. This is it. This is the big one. Jacob and I are going to preview this Week 18 matchup for all the marbles. It's it. NFC number 1 seed on the line. Are we going to be the division champions? Are we going to be the 5th seed? We'll figure it out this weekend. We're going to have Arif Hasan on. He provides awesome analysis, as we've come to expect with him, as well as awesome conversation. I just love talking with that dude. So let's get on this, Jacob. How are you feeling about this matchup?
I'm still feeling good, man. The ball's rolling. We're hot, man. The offense is hot. It's going to be a good matchup. NFC North, we've already seen them once. We're at home, at least. A good way to finish off the season. And, regardless, really, win or lose, the chances that we have to go deep in the playoffs are still really high, even if we do end up falling out. Which is crazy to think about, that the loser of this is going to be a 14-win team, and they're going to be on the road for the first week. So the NFL really needs to, relook at their playoff seeding. But, we perform well on the road. So, I'm not worried about regardless of what happens, but we want the North. This is what we want. This is what we've been playing for. So I'm amped, man. I'm ready.
Yeah, if you're a fan, and I'm sure you are of the Lions because you're listening to this podcast, I would not be devastated if the Lions lose this game. I think we're going to win. I have faith that we're going to win this game. But say something happens and we don't, we're undefeated on the road. We have a very strong team. And if anything, the Lions will take this as another challenge, and they will perform. Dan Campbell will have this team ready to perform. Don't worry about what Troy Aikman said in his broadcast about this defense. We got Alex Anzalone coming back. We're gonna be all right, either this week or the following week. So don't get your underwear in a bunch. If we lose this game, don't jump to 97-1 and air all your grievances of why Aaron Glenn sucks and all this stuff. No, we're still a playoff team. We still will go far in the playoffs. It's just going to be a harder road, but this team is based on grit, and what would be more gritty than winning 3 road playoff games on your way to the Super Bowl?
Absolutely. We hope it doesn't come to that, but if that's what it takes, it takes more, right? Whatever it takes, we're prepared.
Exactly. So I am jacked to go this game. It's going to be a really awesome environment. I just can't say enough about how excited I am on this game. Jacob, you pulled up an interesting stat for this game. So why don't you tell us about how big of a matchup in NFL history this is?
It's the biggest matchup in NFL history. So it's actually it's going to break the record for the highest combined win total against 2 teams in the regular season. So there has never been a regular season game with 2 teams combining for as many wins. So us and the Vikings, obviously 14 wins apiece, breaks the previous record. The combined win record between 2 teams was in 2007. The Patriots and Giants combined for 25 wins, and there are 28 wins combined between us. So that breaks that record. And obviously the Patriots and Giants game, there was not a division or anything like that on the line. So it literally does not get any bigger than this one,
I know,
as far as regular season games go.
Yeah, when you talk about the difference between getting the first round bye and then going on the road the whole time. So either you're going to be at home the whole time, assuming you win that first game, or you're going to be on the road the whole time. It's going to be, unless some weird things happen, some big upsets. I mean, you could get a home game as a 5th seed, but not until the NFC Championship game. So, God, that stat that you pulled is amazing. And yeah. Okay, you can't overstate how big this game is, and it's not just because we're Lions fans. This is a historic NFL game.
And that is no doubt why that we flexed it into Sunday Night Football. It's in prime time where it belongs.
Yeah. You could see this coming as soon as the Packers lost to the Vikings. It was a foregone conclusion that this was going to be Sunday. There was no other game even close to reaching any sort of interest or magnitude of this game. So you knew that was going to happen on Sunday, which makes you wonder why Sam Darnold and the Vikings were celebrating so hard. They after their win against the Packers, they got a tough one coming up this weekend.
Yeah, the job's not finished, guys. We'll let them celebrate and pop champagne or whatever.
Yep.
But we're focused on the task at hand.
That's correct. Even with 1 day less rest and a trip across the country. So, all right, Jacob. We know this team. We played them. We don't need to talk about their impact players. We know division rival. We've already went over that this season. But let's talk about the players that are going to be available. Let's talk about the injury report. Who showed up on the Vikings injury report today?
Yeah, the Vikings, I just have the notable injuries listed on here. Harrison Smith, the safety, had a foot injury, but he got a full practice in. He was able to play last week. They expect him to play against us. Definitely huge for the defense to have. Running back Aaron Jones actually had a limited practice, as did fullback CJ Ham. They're both dealing with quad injuries. They're calling them limited. I believe the expectation is that they're going to play. But their linebacker, Pat Jones, has a knee injury thanks to a vicious and dirty hit by Tucker Kraft on the Packers. So he did not practice.
But I thought only Kirby had vicious and dirty hits to knees.
Right. Kirby's the only one that goes low. Yeah.
Nope. That was very ironic that happened. So as far as the Lions, Dave Montgomery showed up on the injury report as expected. We're not expecting. Hopefully it's the next game because it'll be divisional round game. Assuming we win this weekend, that would be our next game. Hopefully we get him back for that week of the playoffs. But he did not practice. Mosley did not practice. That's chucked up to an illness, which is going around locker rooms and schools and all sorts of stuff right now. So yeah,
I'm feeling it too.
Yes, exactly. Jacob sounds a little stuffy. He's not giving us his best Barry White impression. He is feeling a little under the weather, so he's being a trooper and being on here. So we appreciate that. Alex Anzalone in the evaluation period. So they're estimating a limited practice for him today. I'm hoping he's back. Dan Campbell seemed to say that we'll know more tomorrow. I feel like with a forearm injury, he could have kept in shape better than, say, a lower body injury. So I'm hoping that he'll be back. And as far as mentally, he's locked in. We know Alex, what type of player he is. It's not going to take very long to him get ready and go. But another linebacker was a limited practice. That's Jack Campbell with a rib. Amik Robertson was a limited practice with a calf injury. And then Khalif Raymond, which will be interesting to see if he gets activated this week, was a full practice. So I'd love to see Khalif being activated for this game. Just another weapon that we have. And frankly, we've been missing some in the punt return game since he's been gone. It's not been very dynamic, and I'd like to get that weapon back out there.
Absolutely. Agreed.
All right, Jacob, why don't you hit us real quick? We haven't played the Vikings since week 17. Where are they showing up stat-wise right now in the last game of the season?
Yes, where they stand right now, Pro Football Focus has the Vikings rated as the number 7 overall team. It breaks down their offense is rated number 5. Statistically, they are number 9 in points scored. They are 12th in yards per game, 5th for passing yards, 19th for rushing yards. The defensive side of the ball, they are rated 10th on Pro Football Focus, but they are number 4 in terms of points scored or points against. They are 16th in defensive yards per game, 28th in passing, and 2nd in rushing.
Yep, their rush defense is nothing to joke around with, but Jahmyr Gibbs kind of tore it up the last time, put him in a blender, so hopefully that he can do the same here.
Yeah, we need more of the same out of Gibbs for sure.
This is a monumental matchup, just from overall rankings, stats, everything. You cannot overstate how big this matchup is. So let's talk to someone that's going to give us a lot of information. We're going to hit the break. We got Arif coming in. We love talking to him. This is can't miss interview. There's some really good questions. I hope you guys enjoy it. Hey, it's Jason here. Just wanted to give everyone a quick thank you for listening to us. Aww. One of the best ways that you could support us here at Talking Grit is by giving us a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform. We'd love to hear from you on socials. You can follow us on Twitter at Talking Grit Pod and also on Blue Sky at talkinggrit.bluesky.social. We are lucky to have this guy back on. It is Arif Hasan from Wide Left. He covers NFL there. Arif, thank you for taking the time out of this busy week. Awesome matchup. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I really love, the ability to just talk about this game in particular. So this is going to be exciting.
Yeah, I know. When the schedule came out before the season, I was like, why we got the Vikings the last game of the season? It's going to be us and the Packers. And, I was dead wrong, and this has turned out to one
Most
of the
us
best.
were. Most of us were.
Yeah. Oh, man. Not you, Arif. You had full faith in Sam Darnold even throughout the whole process, right? You thought it was going to go this way.
Of course. Now, I was a little bit higher on Darnold than a lot of people, but I think I'd be pulling a bunch of people's legs if I said I anticipated, this whole deal.
Jacob said before the season started over 4,000 for Sam Darnold. He did, and
I said 41. I said over 4,100 is what I said, and he's already hit that.
Excellent work, dude. Excellent work.
I know. He got everything else wrong about the season. Thought Aaron Rodgers was going to do all. No,
not important.
That's no. Don't you swing that around. Jason said the Falcons were going to be like 14-3.
I thought Kirk Cousins was going to have better with all those weapons down there in Atlanta, and I thought that.
Well, you weren't alone in that one either, man.
Yeah, I know. Man, I tell you, Kyle Pitts has been a letdown for them, and no one has let down more than my son, who drafted him in fantasy football. He just kept cursing him week after week. Why, Kyle? 2 points. What am I doing?
I get it, though.
All right, let's talk about this matchup. First, last time we talked to you in week 7, you gave us the rundown that the Vikings fans always feel like the sky is about to fall, right? That's what you kind of parlayed to us. How are they feeling right now going into this week 18 matchup? I know they're probably flying high, but are they still thinking the sky's going to fall, or are they riding cloud 9?
So my sense is that there's kind of an internal struggle within all Vikings fans about this very question now, because I published a piece last week about that very thing, about the tendency of Vikings fans to guard their emotions, to cynically interpret positive seasons and stuff like that. And my piece was basically, throw caution to the wind, right? Make sure enjoy what you can and put your faith and hope in this team, because this is probably the best chance you'll have in a while. This is a genuinely good team. Because I was not a believer in that 2022 squad, right? And I was really suspicious of the 2017 squad, right? This feels more substantial to me. And I think that a lot of Vikings fans are having this conversation. The responses to that piece were basically yeah, I'm in. I'm all in. I'm going to let them hurt me, because this is the only way that you can kind of approach fandom, is to just kind of, pursue it with full passion, right? And then there's another half, and I say halves, I don't know what the proportions are, but there's another half that are no, I'm not letting this team do this to me again. I'm going to watch them every week. I'm going to want them to win, but I'm not going to hope. I'm never going to hope, right? And I get it, right? Because again, if you're not part of the fan base, or you're skeptical, why are the Vikings fans saying woe is me about a 14-win team? It's really difficult to put into words all of the Vikings history where it's been, win, 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 lose, right? Win, 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 lose. A lot of people remember the 98 season, but not a lot of people understand that this has been happening really persistently to the fan base about every 7 years. I think it was Bill Simmons who wrote that no team has annihilated their fan base more consistently than the Minnesota Vikings. So it's a rough go, because you feel weird complaining about a team that I think is 6th or 7th all time in NFL win percentage or something like that. Because a lot of teams haven't won the Super Bowl, right? Why is it different being a Vikings fan? But I think it's the getting close. It's the reason that the Greeks had a myth about Tantalus is because he was always so close to getting food and water, and it was always just out of his reach. And I think being just out of someone's reach is a little bit more excruciating than persistently losing. Although, hey, maybe the Lions are going to give us a good test case. Either way, I don't know.
That's fine.
Oh man! All right, Jacob, go ahead.
So next question that we have, after last week's win, you have the locker room celebration from the Vikings. Why do you think the Vikings celebrated last week's win so much? Was there something extra at play, or was it just, keeping the 1 seed alive? Was there anything behind that?
So I think some of it was, and I think it's the same reason that I chose last week to write that piece instead of this week. I think some of it was just it felt like they had kind of arrived. Like, beating a good divisional opponent once, a lot of people can do that, right? A 6-win Raiders team beat a Patrick Mahomes Chiefs, right? That can happen once, but having that happen twice in a season is a good indication that, like, dude, you've got it, right? You've got it. And I think a lot of this is like we're hitting kind of this stretch of play from Sam Darnold in particular that I think really affirms the approach that the Vikings took this offseason, that affirms the faith that Kevin O'Connell specifically had shown in him. And so I think it's like, hey, this is the Vikings' biggest rival. That's like a big part of it. This is a known good team, right? We're going to keep playing them again and again and again. And this is a quarterback that no one believed in, that put together another astounding performance, right? Because you put a perfect passer rating, well, it was nearly perfect passer rating game, a couple of weeks ago against bad defense. Like, that's good. It's really hard to put up like a 157, no matter who you're playing against, it's still the NFL. That's good, right? But that game, I think it was like 119 passer rating, and I'm not a huge passer rating guy, but I just think it's like a nice, everyone kind of grasps it. But if you get 119 passer rating, 112 or whatever it was with a pick, that's like really hard to do. You throw a pick and you still get 110 plus passer rating. I mean, he had a lights out game. So I think it's the combination of this being kind of this really heated rivalry, one that, on a specific scale is like back and forth. They're nearly 500 against each other or something like that. But on a global scale, it's like the Packers have like 13 championships. Yeah, ask any Packers fans, they'll remind you, right? And the Vikings, by the way, by their accounting method, the Vikings and Lions do have NFL championships, but for some reason, when you bring that up, they don't count them. But,
Right.
but the Packers have all these rings, and the Vikings don't. So on a global level, it feels like, this one-sided rivalry. And so to have that kind of win in this moment, in the season where people don't know whether or not to believe in the team, I think is a big part of it. Obviously, the importance of keeping the 1 seed alive is a component. I think, making sure that, you've got the wins rolling and stuff like that. That's an important component. But obviously, the big regular season game is next week. So why is it this week? And I think a lot of it is just all of these other emotions that have come into play that culminate late in the season.
All right. I want to stick with Sam Darnold here, Arif. This is probably the highest stakes game that he's ever played in. This will probably be the most hostile environment he's ever played in, at least in my opinion. How do you think he's going to handle it this week?
Beautifully. I've come to trust the guy, right? And man, like, again, I was higher on Sam Darnold than most people, which means I was least wrong, I think is maybe the best way to put it, among a group of people, right? Which is like, hey, I think he might be able to put up some, like, average-ish play if things go the right way. Because I was really enthused by what he did in his final 6 games with Carolina. I thought that he did all right, actually, in San Francisco. And, I believe in Kevin O'Connell as a quarterback developer. And the things that I saw and believed in, I didn't see or believe enough. And so now I'm not going to commit that error. I think this guy's good. And I think that when you compare him to other fluky quarterback seasons in Vikings history, that includes like the Case Keenum 2017 season that I never believed in. I mean, I was having fun watching it, but I felt like the bottom would fall out at some point. The reason that this feels different to me is that Darnold he's operating the offense. Like Case Keenum would not do that. You'd scramble and make it. I mean, they're really great highlights, but he wouldn't operate within the confines of the offense. It relied a lot on receivers having a ton of contested catch wins. He's throwing blind a lot. He had an insane sack rate, something like on 2% of pressures for a good chunk of the season. He had a really low sack rate, and I knew that was going to regress. And once that regressed, it was over for him. And that's what happened against the Eagles. But here you take a look at all of the statistical indicators and all the indicators on film about like what, produces a stable quarterback. And it's like, do you perform well in a clean pocket? Do you perform well on unblitzed downs? Do you perform well on first and second down, not just third down? Sustainability marks that other quarterbacks that had really good seasons don't meet, right? If you're only good under pressure, you're probably not going to sustain that, like Case Keenum. If you're only good on third down, you're probably not going to sustain that like Carson Wentz, right? Which is difficult to call it a fluke season, injuries, but like the point is that when we take a look at historically, one-off seasons that weren't marred by injury, that these are the indicators that like, oh, you overperformed on high leverage downs that don't really tell us a lot about the future. And Darnold is doing all of the things statistically, first and second down, clean pocket, unblitzed, standard dropbacks, normal routes, within 2.5 seconds, whatever stable measure you want to use, he's doing really well there. And then he's also doing well in some of the other unpredictable measures, like he's performing really well under pressure. He's averaging 10 yards an attempt against the blitz. He's the best in the NFL, I think. There's a bunch of stuff there. And then you take a look on the film and you see it. You see really subtle pocket management, small moves in the pocket, stuff that people praised. Like, I'm not comparing him to Brady, but he's like the avatar of like subtle pocket movement to avoid sacks. And like, you see kind of what that looks like with Darnold. And then you also see dramatic pocket movement. He does a really good job scrambling to get out of sacks and turning those into plays. You see really good arm strength, which I realize, talking to a Lions fan base that's seen Matthew Stafford, like, it's not that good, but it's a pretty strong arm. Right. I'm used to Kirk Cousins, who had an underrated arm, but certainly these are not in the same universe of strong arm. He's accurate too. And, I think a lot of us see like some of these highlight catches and you're like, well, that's not really an accurate throw. And it's not, but I think from down to down, he's been really accurate, turning in like really good ball placement, generating a lot of yards after the catch for the receivers and stuff like that. And so all of the film traits that you want in a quarterback, are there. Is he overly aggressive? Like, yeah, he's going to make a stupid decision here or there. That's what he does. But again, I'm talking to a fan base that saw Matt Stafford for a while. It works out mostly. Like, you want a guy who's going to take a big shot. 1 pick, 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I'll take it. So that's kind of where you're at, is that you get 1 or 2 stupid plays a game, and then you get like 4 or 5 wow plays, and that's like, yeah, I'll bounce that checkbook any day,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Let's stick with Sam Darnold, okay? We're gonna jump to the offseason. We're gonna skip this awesome game that we have come. Skip the playoffs. Week 1 next year. I'm gonna give you 4. I'm gonna give you 4 multiple choice options. Who's your Week 1 starter for the Vikings? Sam Darnold, J.J. McCarthy, Daniel Jones, or the field? Someone else that's not on the team already. If I give you that choice, who would you pick?
Well, immediately, if I'm doing this millionaire style, I'm crossing off the field and Daniel Jones. I think it's a 2-horse race here. Yeah. Which, by the way, I really like the way the Vikings have handled the Daniel Jones thing. Like, is he going to be good? I have no idea. But, this guy turned Josh Dobbs into like a pretty good looking quarterback for 3 games. I just like, do whatever you want at quarterback, man. I trust you. But between Darnold and McCarthy, at the moment, I reserve the right to change my mind. At the moment, I think it's J.J. McCarthy. And it is, you take a look at the season Sam Darnold had, and you hear me talk about how actually it's sustainable. It's not like a Case Keenum year. And you think, what the heck, man? Like, why wouldn't it be Sam Darnold? And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that this was kind of the promise the Vikings made. Teams don't keep promises. It's a business. You change your mind, right? But I think it is one motivating factor, right? Is that they're like, hey, we're going to make you a lot of money. You're gonna help teach this rookie quarterback, which turns out you wouldn't be able to as much as you like because he got injured. But you're gonna teach this rookie quarterback, and you're gonna play well, and you're gonna sign a multi-year contract somewhere else for a lot of money and a lot of security, and that's great. And this season is going to be about getting Sam paid. And a lot of players have said that too. We want to get Sam paid, which it's kind of heartwarming too, right? Because that's like one, and then the other is like the Vikings made plans cap-wise with that in mind. You could always change your plans. You have to be adaptable. But they made plans with the understanding that they would have a rookie quarterback under contract, and throwing another $50 million contract or whatever Sam Darnold ends up producing is really going to change that. And again, sometimes you have to change, so that's not a dispositive thing either. And then also the amount of belief that this team has in J.J. McCarthy kind of stuns me. Like, I've been around this team a lot through a lot of quarterbacks, and I've been able to talk to people inside the organization about their quarterbacks, and I got to tell you, they did not believe in Christian Ponder privately as much as they did publicly, right? Which shouldn't come as a shock given how that all turned out. But like, it was pretty bad by the middle of his second year, because his first year he was Donovan McNabb was supposed to be the starting quarterback, and he ended up starting late in the season. But like by his second year, they were like, I don't think this is working out, right? There was a lot of faith and belief in Teddy Bridgewater, so I will say that that's kind of up there. But it was more we really love this kid, right? We love who he is and how he is, and we trust that those intangibles are going to produce the results that we want to see. But they were under no illusions that the 2015 or 2014 seasons heralded a high-level quarterback. They just assumed that he would, produce that along the way as part of the process. And I think he was on the way. So, I think that's fine. But, I was here what they had, like I said, Donovan McNabb and some other veteran quarterbacks that they brought in, and the amount of faith that they have in JJ McCarthy is outstanding. Like they've been blown away at every step of the process by what he's been able to do on the practice field, like before he got injured, of course, and how quickly he's picking up the offense and stuff like that. And I think that they're going to take the chance that the Packers took with Jordan Love, right, and just let a really high caliber quarterback walk away. And I think the Packers' risk was greater than this risk because Aaron Rodgers is coming off back-to-back MVP seasons and you let him walk, and Jordan Love has been sitting for a while, and he actually didn't look all that good when he finally saw the field. And so you had more negative evidence than the absence of evidence like you do with McCarthy. So I think that was a bigger risk, but I think it's a pretty good model for the kind of risk the Vikings will want to take here. And I think, look, if Darnold ends up in the Super Bowl, he doesn't have to win it. But if he ends up in the Super Bowl, I'm changing my answer. But I think it's going to be McCarthy.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Well, both Jacob and I are huge Michigan fans, as you can imagine, being from the state that we're in. So we're conflicted. We want JJ to succeed, but we do not want him to succeed in purple.
Right. So so if they extend Sam Darnold and trade McCarthy, that's like the ideal scenario.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. It's an interesting, especially for the NFC North. I'm really interested to see how that whole thing develops this offseason. There's still a lot of this season to help determine that. Depends on how far the Vikings go or whatever. But I'm curious about that.
I mean, you take Kevin O'Connell and you give him a rookie quarterback with like the right mindset, all the talent, intangibles, and everything that you want, and then you have like that what you think is going to be the perfect mix, and just make him into a super quarterback. On paper, it looks like it's going to be great. So
yeah,
I can see why they like him so much and why they really want to go all out for that.
For sure.
Next question, though. Do you think, as of right now, that Kevin O'Connell is the coach of the year? Or do you think that title's up for grabs this week between him and Dan Campbell?
Yeah. If the Lions win, because they're basically the two favorites. They've been the two favorites for like 3-4 weeks now, right?
Right.
If the Lions win, that might shift the odds back. So that's something that's kind of curious. I would say, I think the way that a lot of people talk about Coach of the Year is headed in the right direction, but it's not complete. And what I mean is a lot of people have been comparing the preseason win expectation to the total wins, which means good coaches can only ever win once, right? Because then their preseason win expectations are just going to remain high, so it's impossible for them to win, which sucks. But B, doesn't take into account circumstances like the Vikings had with under Mike Zimmer with Teddy Bridgewater, where his like knee blew up, and it's like, well, the preseason win expectations were relatively high, and a new quarterback comes in, or the situations like this year's Lions, where you have like 18 or whatever players on injured reserve, like that. I think is something that preseason win expectations don't capture. So I think we're headed in a good direction because I think it's how good do you think this team would be with an average coach versus how good are they now is actually probably the way to take a look at Coach of the Year. And the closest we can get are, well, how would the season have played out, right? And so I think it's fair to put Dan Campbell in that conversation, despite this, they've only slightly overperformed versus the Vikings massively overperforming the preseason win expectations. I would say that O'Connell's work with Sam Darnold really recommends him well, and I would put him there regardless of who wins this game. But I wouldn't begrudge Campbell winning that. And I think finding a way to keep that defense not just treading water, but consistently physical and aggressive as you cycle through free agents. And finding out Campbell guys, particularly in free agency, right? It's like these guys really want to hurt people in a good way, right? Okay. Really want to lay the wood, right? And enthusiastically approach football with a passion. I have some questions about whether or not that technically applies to Zadarius Smith, but who cares? He's good, right? So, I think part of I think that is an important element of that. And so it wouldn't bother me or anything like that. I wouldn't say that there was some injustice involved, but I would think that were I to cast a ballot, and of course, I'm covering the Vikings closer than I'm covering any other team, so there's some bias there. But I would give it to O'Connell just because of the way that we saw Sam Darnold's career turn around with the result of this outstanding season.
Yeah, I feel like O'Connell pretty much already has that locked in, just because the Coach of the Year is kind of like how they treat the MVP award, where it's like the MVP award goes to the quarterback having the best season on the best team. If it was literally just about the best team or the best, stats, you got the whole Lamar versus Josh Allen thing this year. But the Coach of the Year historically is kind of just the team with the most improbable season, and kind of like, they're having the most outstanding. They're doing things that weren't expected. And I think that's where, obviously, what the Vikings have been able to do and what Kevin O'Connell's been able to do with Sam Darnold, regardless of whether they win or lose the division. I mean, most of the Coach of the Year winners are not division winners anyway. So I just don't think.
Oh, you've done your research, man. I did not know that. That's a really good point.
No, because there's a lot of, odds that kind of almost like they're playing for Coach of the Year. Like it's going to depend on this game. Right. But I just, that holds very little weight historically. So, yeah, I think that Kevin O'Connell's probably already got that locked down.
I think, Arif, you made up a great point. It's usually based on preseason expectations, which is a really poor way of looking at things because, that's a bunch of us not, experts or whatever. And that's traditionally not how, someone comes out of the woodwork or whatever. But I think it is an interesting thing. We thought the Vikings were going to have a down year. That's what we thought. We thought the Lions were going to have a good year. But you're right. The Lions have had all these unexpected injuries, huge injuries like Hutchinson and all that. And Dan Campbell's been able to produce. You look at someone like Kyle Shanahan, who's went through a lot of injuries. His team didn't make the playoffs. So, it's hard. A lot of it's a guessing game. But I think this is an interesting test case. And all right, where do we want to put it in? To someone that overseeded expectations based on the preseason, or someone that fought through adversity during the season or made key decisions? Dan Campbell was getting a lot of talk about being gutsy or whatever, going for it on fourth down. That could play into it too, because a lot of those have worked out for the Lions. A lot of people like to second guess those decisions, but you got a team that's 14-2. I think he's doing a good job.
Yeah, no, for sure.
All right, let's stick with some head coaches. I know you cover more than just the Vikings. Are there, how many head coaches are we going to see gone on Monday, is there anybody still fighting for a job, or are all these decisions already made?
Oh, man. I think that, to answer that second question first, I think that there are people still fighting for a job. I think we're not necessarily going to see everybody who is on the hot seat, today be on the hot seat on Monday. I think like a win here or there could help some people. But yeah, I mean, I think we're probably not seeing Jacksonville, Las Vegas. I'm curious about the Giants. Probably not, but it wouldn't shock me if they gave him another chance with another quarterback. But that could be interesting. I think the Patriots. I think Mayo keeps his job. I think McCarthy keeps his job. I know I saw some people tweet about Zach Taylor, and I get it, but I don't think that he loses his job. So I think a lot of the firings that we were going to see, we've already seen midseason, including improbably, the Bears, right? That finally fired someone midseason. But I think I think we're going to see maybe 2 more, maybe 3 more Black Monday firings, but I don't think we're going to see a ton of them. Sometimes we see a third of the league get let go in a day or something like that.
Right.
But I think a lot of the coaches that were going to be let go got let go, New Orleans or New York or the Chicago.
Yeah, selfishly, with our coordinators being out there, I'm hoping there's not a lot of openings out there. Just reduce the chance that we're going to lose one of those guys.
That's fair, but also it seems like Ben Johnson's extremely judicious about which ones he wants to pursue, and I don't know that any of the ones I named are golden opportunities. So
yeah.
I think New York's out and Chicago's out just based on ownership, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think, and if ownership is important, then if we do see that really unlikely, in my opinion, scenario that Zach Taylor's let go, then even though Cincinnati has a great quarterback situation, I think the ownership is probably a concern, not as big a concern, right, as some other ownership situations, but is probably a concern for somebody who is extremely discriminating on this, like Ben Johnson.
Yeah, if McCarthy goes, he's not going to Dallas. I don't think he's going to want to be in that circus.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh,
Yeah. All right, Jacob.
all right. Next question that I wanted to ask, kind of a popular debate this week, I guess. From your perspective, do you view Amon-Ra St. Brown as a diva receiver?
Oh man, I saw that tweet go around, and I saw the quote tweet go viral too. That was like, absolutely. So I don't like super love the term, I guess, but like,
Yeah.
you know, as we like understand them to be, like, probably Randy Moss, certainly Terrell Owens, right?
Yes.
And it, like, of that category, you know, Dez a little bit. And then at the other end of the spectrum, to bring it back to Detroit, Calvin Johnson all the way at the other end, right? It's more of a diva than Golden Tate, I think. But like diva's tough because it suggests someone who doesn't work hard, right? And like Amon-Ra has like a very strong personality, right? But it very and he's very vocal about it, but it very much doesn't seem like, I mean, first of all, he definitely works hard. There's no question about that. But it very much doesn't seem like it is the kind of attitude that is necessary, and you probably know more than I do, is necessarily detrimental to like team cohesion. Certainly, as wins are piling up, that's not going to happen. A lot of diva receivers are fine on winning teams, so the true test is like in bad circumstances. But I think probably not in terms of the way we understand what the term is supposed to mean, but I think I get where people are coming from on that one, because like, it's not going to endear me to your listeners. I personally find him annoying.
Yeah.
So if that's the criteria, yeah, sure. But I don't think that's what people are supposed to try and communicate when they say that. So, you know,
I from my we asked the question for you, Arif, not to put you on the spot, but we just wanted an outside of Detroit because obviously all Detroiters love Amon-Ra St. Brown,
right?
And so we wanted to know what, when we saw that tweet go around, I was like, we got to ask Arif this, just so that. But I think a better word, diva, I don't think is the right word. Instigator is probably a word that
I would. That. That's good.
Is how I would put it, like, because it. I don't know what podcast. I think it might have been the Pride of Detroit guys, Morgan or something, said that whenever he, Amon-Ra does a first down, he takes whatever the other team does and does their first down signal. Like last week, he did George Kittle's dropping 3. He dropped the 3. So if you watch that, he'll do whatever the other team does. And it's just a thing to get under your skin. So I think Diva's wrong, but from an outside perspective, he's just someone that's going to get under your skin.
Oh yeah, that's fair. That's very like you see that more often with cornerbacks than receivers. So the first thing that came to my mind was Josh Norman, who loves to get under people's skin.
Yeah.
And I think it was he and Odell who fought, right? And then Cortland Finnegan specialized in getting famously, now we know, but like it always had that reputation of getting under people's skin. And so like that's kind of what I'm thinking of. But like I'm glad I brought Golden Tate because Golden Tate does that. Not the first down thing, but like he loves getting under cornerbacks' skin.
Yes.
And so that's a really good way to put it. But it certainly is a good pushback against the diva term because like the reason people dislike Terrell Owens is because he hurt his team with whatever he was doing, right? And he was very much, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know the guy, so I'm speaking entirely in terms of perception, but like it very much looked like he cared much more about his personal well-being at the expense of other things that are happening, cared much more about getting his targets and his yards than the team winning, right? Which, and I do want to say there's a difference between perception and reality here. Stephon Diggs got this label, and Stephon loved getting targets, but he didn't really complain after wins. It was only after losses that he talked about, that he seemed to complain about targets and not getting the ball. And I think part of it was just like, hey, if we're not winning, let me win the game for you kind of stuff, which I appreciate. Obviously, he went about it the wrong way. But like, again, I was talking about like a spectra of like diva receivers. He's not at the Terrell Owens level, but I think he's ahead of like where I just put like Golden Tate and Amon-Ra, right? But I think in terms of like having strong personalities that people have strong reactions to, like if that's the spectrum, yeah, like I think that instigator is a really good name for that kind of category of player, because it's annoying as hell, man.
Yeah, I think that's why they're kind of just like using, because the term diva, like how you just said it with Terrell Owens and everything, is putting yourself above the team and you care more about your targets and stuff versus the wins and losses. And that's definitely not how Amon-Ra is. I mean, he's got times where he's only targeted 4 or 5 times, only a few catches. You know, he's definitely not on the sideline in Ben Johnson's face. You're never going to see him, you know, telling him, give me the ball or throwing his helmet off or anything like that. But I do think that people view him as unlikable, and that's probably why, you know, all the diva talk is coming. And he's got his own podcast now, so now it's, you know, he's more out there, more vocal, you know.
Yeah.
You'd never hear Calvin, like, a lot of people never even heard Calvin Johnson's voice. They didn't even know what he sounded like, just because he was so just about, you know, going to work and everything, just not any outside stuff.
Yeah.
I just thought about this question while we were talking about the Amon-Ra thing. Justin Jefferson or Randy Moss? I want to know, like, if you had to pick right now.
Ooh.
If you had to pick right now, you're starting a team, and you get prime, obviously not Randy Moss now, but prime Randy Moss or Justin Jefferson. I don't know, whatever you want to say his prime is right now or whatever. Right. What are you starting your team with? Are you starting with Randy or are you starting with Justin?
Dude,
I should have gave you some time.
Yeah,
that's tough. On the spot.
Yeah, making me pick a favorite child, you know.
Oh yeah, well, that's all right.
I hate doing this. But I gotta pick Randy, dude. I think we over leverage history. I think we over identify historical players as like historical greats is a little bit greater than they were because of the benefit of memory and nostalgia. And so I don't want to say something like it's like disrespectful to compare, especially statistically. Like obviously you understand where the comparison comes from. But like Justin can do anything, but Randy can do anything, right? Like you understand like the difference? Like if I'm building an offense, you know, I can put Justin Jefferson in any offense and he thrives. I can put Randy Moss in any offense and he thrives. And you can't build an offense around Justin Jefferson. Obviously, the Vikings have done that. Like the part of the reason that they hold on to the ball so much is because of how much they trust Justin Jefferson to get open late in a route concept or to improvise in a way that aligns with what the quarterback sees on the field. Like that's a really important. So they built the offense around him. But like you can build an offense around Randy in a way that is devastating and explosive and soul wrenching, right? Like Justin Jefferson really screwed up a lot of defenders in the division, right? But like Randy Moss made the Packers draft 3 defensive backs in a row after his rookie year. Yeah. That's insane. So like I'm picking Randy, but that's absolutely no disrespect to Justin. Like there's not a ton of other historical receivers that I'd pick ahead of Justin. Like this is how much I respect Justin Jefferson. I'm saying maybe Jerry, right? Like that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have if you're picking between those two, Randy.
Yeah, no,
and,
for sure. Yeah.
Justin Jefferson in your history. I mean, yeah. It's interesting. Would attitude go in at all if you were picking that? It would, say Justin gives a couple more years of, what he's been doing now. I never talked to Randy. I don't know him. I mean, he had the label of maybe taking plays off or something like that. I don't know if that was in Minnesota or just after in the Raiders, situation. Yeah. So would that play any into your decision about, building a team, just perception of the player?
Yeah, I think if I had the understanding that my team was not particularly good, I'd probably rather have Justin for sure. I think Randy'd be much more frustrated on a poorly operating team. So I think that's fair, right? That's maybe a consideration that you'd have to make. But I think that just kind of generally speaking, I'd have Randy, even after you kind of take all of that into account. I will say a couple of things. One is that I don't think that he took plays off. Even in Minnesota, he did have that reputation. So you're not like wrong to point it out. Watching it, I don't think he did. And I think there's a couple of like reasons that perception existed. I actually wrote about it like a year ago. But it was just like, he wasn't remarkably efficient at communicating. And so when he would use his words to say stuff like, I play when I want to play, people misinterpreted that to mean something else. He was responding to someone asking him if like he needs to be like motivated or coached up before a game, and he goes, "No, when I go." Is more what he's like, attempting to suggest, and not, I play when I feel like it is how it was interpreted, right? And that kind of contributed to that perception, and the fact that he does not look very fast when you just see him running because of how long his legs are, and how explosive like each step is. He looks slow, so he always looks like he's jogging, even when he's running a 4.41 or whatever, right? So I think that's part of it, and I think that people assume that receivers with big personalities, and I'm definitely not including Amon-Ra on this one because I think everyone just assumes that he blocks like a demon because that's the attitude that he's given us. But like I think people assume that receivers that have that diva label, to bring it back to that previous conversation, don't block or take plays off or whatever. And that's not necessarily the case. That sometimes these receivers that draw a lot of attention to themselves, sometimes they will, be aggressive workers on the field on every play. And that was my perception of Randy, was that he did take plays off. And after looking over it again, when I was able to watch a couple of games and have access to some tape and stuff like that, and rereading some of these interviews in the fuller context, I think no. I think the attitude's a much smaller problem. But I will say, he had a lot of trouble communicating, and I think the media in Minnesota did him a disservice. And I think he reacted poorly to the fact that the media did him a disservice, and I think that is on him. And so I think those attitude issues are there. I think he created a lot of problems for the Vikings in 2010 when he came back to the team. Those are his issues that he created, right? So I don't want to say that these don't exist. I just think that they exist in a smaller capacity than I think, given his attitude, or given like the perception of his attitude.
Mm.
Yep. Now I'm going to put you and Randy in a room, and you guys will talk out your now. Randy, come on the show.
Yeah.
All right, Jacob.
All right. Last question. Just if you can give us a prediction on the game. So it doesn't have to be the final score. Just if you had to predict something that's going to happen in the game.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah. Not a final score, but I do want to make a note that I think if both teams are fully healthy, the Lions probably wash the Vikings. And now that that's not the case, it is a much more interesting game. I think, and I'm stealing something that Pride of Detroit reached out to me to answer 5 questions. So that article's coming up soon. I'm just going to steal something I said in my email response. So,
go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Multiple turnovers for both teams. I think that the Vikings are really good at generating turnovers. I think that Jared Goff is like uniquely pretty good at defeating the Vikings' strange looks. I'll give him that. But I just think that you get a lot of turnover opportunities with the Vikings. Then obviously, like, the Lions have like Kirby Joseph and a really, really like a ball hawking secondary in general. So Darnold likes to make mistakes. I mentioned that at the beginning. So I think we're probably going to see multiple turnovers from both teams.
Yeah, Arif, you've been great. You don't have to be sorry for plugging the Pride of Detroit boys. We have utmost respect for them, and we've had them on the show. So that's fine. Look out for that article on Pride of Detroit. When's that coming out, Arif? Do you know?
I'm not sure. My impression was tomorrow morning, but who's to say? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe by the time this goes out, it might be up there. If not, keep an eye out for that, and I'm sure it'll be good. I'm sorry that you're not going to be at the game this week, Arif, but I won't be cheering for your team. I'm going to be cheering very loudly, making false starts and all sorts of stuff while I'm there.
Yeah, no worries, man. I'm sorry I can't make it out. There's a ton of people in Detroit that I actually enjoy the city a lot. I've been to Detroit a number of times, both for football and non-football related reasons, and I love the food. And so it sucks not being able to travel as much. It sucks not being able to see, all my friends from Detroit, but hopefully I'll make it out soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, maybe for a playoff game in a couple weeks, you guys will be heading back into town. That's
jeez, that would, yeah. Oh my God.
It could happen. It very well could happen.
I view that as a nightmare scenario, but certainly.
Yeah, right.
Well, I for one, I'm like, if that happens, I don't like facing, I don't like facing any team 3 times. And if you beat them twice, beating them 3 times, that's tough in one season. So it could, but it very well could happen. So we'll see. We've been talking with Arif Hasan. Where can they find your stuff at, Arif?
Yeah, all my stuff is published over at Wide Left Football. I've got pieces on the Vikings, pieces on some other NFL teams. I have slacked off a little bit on covering some NFL teams or other NFL teams in the specific, but I do cover the NFL at large, so I've got pieces on that. I also do a little bit of political commentary, so if you're interested in that, check that out. If you're not, you can skip past it. Don't worry about it. And I'll have a bunch of draft coverage coming up soon. People seem to respond really well to that, so check that out.
Awesome.
So, all right. Well, maybe we'll see in a couple weeks, Arif, if we get a rematch here. So
for sure. Yeah, I'd love
all
to
right.
come back on.
All right. Thank you, Arif. We enjoyed talking with Arif, and we want to thank him again for showing up. So hope you guys enjoy. All right, Jacob. Arif's the best, man. He is the best.
Absolutely. Always great to talk to.
Yes, he is 100%. So before we get into keys to victory, I want to just repeat something that Jared Goff said in the post-game locker room celebration. He said, I can feel it right now. We know what's at stake next week. It's a big boy game. No champagne popping, none of that. They wanted this game. Dan Campbell wants this game. They're not scared. They're going to go in and play their hearts out. So, Jacob, let's talk about this. Keys to victory. Let's get into this. What's your number one?
Yeah, number one key to victory that I have here is don't start off on offense. Don't start slow, but play smart. So I think that was kind of an important focus point. The last game that we had is that we wanted to come out quick. We wanted to try to score and get ahead and play ahead. So, that's the don't start off slow aspect. But we ran that fake punt. It was 4th and 7. We ran a fake punt deep in our own territory. That was not a very good decision. I didn't like that live as it was happening. And, the Vikings turned that around to a quick 7 points. That kind of took some of the steam out of us. We went 3 and out the next drive. They got a field goal. We went 3 and out again. I think we only had the ball for between 4 and 5 minutes time of possession for the first quarter. But, we only gave up 2 offensive touchdowns in that game. So the first one was just so fast and it got the momentum swinging their way. This is how we operate, is coming out fast. We don't start off slow. We come out fast. We put points on the board. We put the pressure on the other team. And I think that's just going to be in this kind of a matchup, especially with the defense that they have and everything. That's going to be key, is to get to them quickly. Keep the crowd involved.
I like where you're going with this. For me, to do that, to be good on offense, is stay ahead of the sticks. And we talked about they have a really good rush defense. We have to find a way. If we can't rush it, then we need to get quick passes to Amon-Ra, Laporta. We need to get in 3rd and short and not let them unleash, their complicated blitz scheme. I have full faith that Jared Goff is going to be able to figure that out, but I'd rather keep it in 3rd and 5 or less. And however we're going to do that, either short passing or, effective running. So I just stay ahead of the sticks. No stupid penalties, those type of things.
Yeah, it's funny how close statistically our defenses are, because their passing defense is rated, we say 28th in yards giving up, but their rushing defense is 2nd. And then you flip it over to us, we're actually 31st in passing yards given up, and we're 3rd for rush defense.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually had the fewest rushing attempts against us in the entire league, just because it's not working. Teams are either playing from behind or they're just abandoning it because they're having more success in the pass game. So, it's kind of like a mirror image as far as you look at the stats go that way, but they have not been affected by the injuries the same way that we haven't had to overcome quite as much.
They will tell you the opposite. Vikings fans will tell you the opposite, that they've dealt with injuries, but no one.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I think based on the starters, before, I want to say week 1 starters, they've lost 2. Is it 2 people that they've lost?
And I don't know.
I don't understand how I've heard the argument too, but it just doesn't. They've had 6 people on injured reserve. We've got 3 times as many people, and I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I know obviously it's much lower than what we're dealing with. So they also, I don't know if this bothers you the way it bothers me, but you see those things where they're like, you guys are having the season of your lives, and we're just having a good year messing around with Sam Darnold.
Mm-hmm.
It's you don't really, there's no way they really think that. They're just trying to talk trash.
Yeah, well, they could say that, and some of that's true. I mean, we are having the season of our lives, but also, like Arif said, they've been stung many times with having successful seasons and either getting bounced early in the playoffs or losing in, a spectacular fashion. So, I whatever. And Arif, we've had that conversation with Arif, probably off camera too, whether it's worse to be that type of fan where you've had everything and it's given away, or for us Lions fans not having anything, and we're just grateful for the season that we're having. So, yeah, and they could talk trash all they want, but now Jared Goff said this way: this is a big boy game, and the big boys are going to come out. And if I got Sam Darnold on one hand and I got Jared Goff on the other, I'm going to take Jared Goff right now in a big money situation. And, plus not to mention that we're at home and Sam Darnold's going to have to deal with some hostility, and, the crowd is going to cause them to use a timeout, false start, get behind the sticks. Those type of things will happen in this game. I have confidence in that.
That's actually leading to my next key to victory, really, is just getting to Darnold. If you look statistically, when he's pressured, it looks like he performs pretty well under pressure, but most of that pressure comes when it's 4 or 5. So if we're able to utilize Branch and if you're AG, you've got to get pressure on him, but it's got to be unorthodox. You have to be able to send someone from the outside where Darnold's not going to be able to read where it's coming from. And that's when he's going to start forcing throws. That's when he's going to start making mistakes. Darnold's definitely going to try to take some deep shots in this game. They're going to try to set some things up. I just think if we get to him and don't allow him time to get through those progressions and find, Justin Jefferson 4 seconds after the snap, it's going to be hard for their offense to move the ball.
Yeah, Sam Darnold's going to make a mistake on his own, whether we cause it through pressure or not. I just have a feeling. And I think it's going to be, like you said, we need to scheme it up. We need to confuse them. And kind of like how we did with Brock Purdy, sending a blitz and not sending the keys. They on the Branch blitz, there was no keys indicator. We need to do something like that. Let Kirby go and make a play. Branch made a huge play in the first game. We need one of those safeties to step up. We're going to need to steal a possession here too, and that's my key to victory. Steal a possession here too, somehow, some way. Unorthodox trick play, turnover. We talked about this in the other episode with Morgan. We need at some point just to how many stops do we need to generate, because our offense is going to just be efficient and score. So we just need to steal a possession or two and stop them from scoring, and so that we could just take it to the house.
Absolutely.
Yeah, much like for our offense that we need to stay ahead of 6, we need to stop the run. The 49ers in the last game were able to run on us a little bit, and I don't want to put a situation where Sam Darnold has a 2nd and 3 or 3rd and 3 and we don't know what they're going to do, because it's really hard to defend in that. You're not going to be able to send. It's going to be harder to send the blitz, and I'd much rather have 3rd and long and go from there.
Yeah, they had moderate success, I would say, last week. Just a couple plays broke out here or there, and then even the 49ers really just completely abandoned the run and just went pass first. If you look at the last game when we played the Vikings, it was like maybe the 3rd play of the game when Aaron Jones had that 34-yard rushing touchdown. And, that was a decent performance from Aaron Jones. I just don't. Obviously, the defense looks a lot different now, but I think this is going to be won through the air. I think there's going to be a passing contest back and forth.
I agree, but I like Gibbs over Jones, and I like Goff over Darnold. I know that might be some homer in there, but I think the stats prove it, and I like being at home with that. So it's going to be a tight battle. It's going to be a very tight battle, but I think I like our advantages.
Yes, absolutely. I saw a funny graphic, though, that it was like it showed Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and then Sam Darnold. And it was like, who's like the front runner for MVP? It was like, why is Sam Darnold in this graphic? Any stat that you pull up there, Jared Goff is better statistically. Same amount of wins, like all the stats. They are pretty close. I'll give him that, but Jared Goff's better in each one, and Goff didn't make the graphic. So that's weird. I don't understand where that's coming from, but yeah, we just Better quarterback, better running back.
The 5 interception game is a blemish on the record, even though we won the game. It
Right.
really is. Take that out, and his interception number, his touchdown to interception ratio was way better.
Ridiculous.
But,
Right.
You know, Sam Darnold's. I will give Sam Darnold's had a good year. When I looked at all the breakdowns between the blitz, the non-blitz, pressure versus non-pressure, there isn't a consistent. He's been very good in all those categories. Kevin O'Connell has set him up and to make a lot of money next year, and he better thank his stars about that. And it's going to be a great game. It's going to be one through the air, like you said. But
And then that makes it, where it lives and dies with Sam Darnold. Because they have games where, he doesn't play very well and they beat the Jaguars 12-7. Or they beat the Bears 30-27 in overtime. If Darnold doesn't have a good game, it seems like the offense sputters. There's not, the most convincing win they had was against the Falcons, and that was the game where Darnold threw 5 touchdown passes. So, I mean, that's really the number one key right there is if you take him out and you shut him down, the offense, which, I mean, is true of most offenses, you shut down the passing game, and then it's hard to do much.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think Aaron Jones is as dynamic as Gibbs is and doesn't have they don't have the line that we do either, although they are playing well. And, this is definitely one of those games where I think if you put these teams together, with the injuries and everything that we have, you put these teams together and we play 10 times, it's probably pretty close to a 5-5 split as who's going to win.
Yeah, as of right now, if we were fully
as of right now, yes.
If we were fully stocked and Hutch, I mean, you just had Hutch back. Let's not even. Leem's out. We leave Hutch. So let's talk a little bit about that. There are defensively. We've lost. McNeil was in the last matchup. But Zeitler was out of the last matchup offensively the last time. So that is going to be huge to have him back because Awasika was in there. You talk about being consistent on the offense. He killed the first 2 drives with a holding penalty and a false start. And that's one of the reasons those stuttered at the beginning. So getting Zeitler back is going to be huge. On the Vikings side, they, didn't have TJ Hawkinson, didn't have one of their offensive weapons back. And, be interesting what the response with Kirby, because Kirby is, dirty player,
right,
and caused them to be out that. So that's another weapon that we didn't have to worry about the last time. So that'll be interesting to see how that breaks down too. And one other thing that I wanted to keep an eye on, J-Mo is only 33 yards shy of 1,000. I'd be shocked if he doesn't get it in this game. He might even get it on one play. So that would be awesome.
Well, regardless, we've already, Lions are the first team in NFL history to have 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers each hit 1,000 scrimmage yards. That's putting his rushing, and receiving yards together. But yeah, to have 1,000 receiving yards is a huge accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good for him. We talked about that all preseason, that he just looked different. He looked like he was putting things together. It looked like he was going to have a big year, and he has.
Yeah, he has. I think beyond just getting the yards and everything like that, he's been a consistent threat, and just the trust with Goff is showing in it. And it showed in the 49ers game with the route running. I think Troy Aikman said, even pointed it out, like his, he's doing things now that he hasn't been able to do in the past with, he's not just a deep threat. He can run in routes. He can run over the middle. He can do a lot of things. Morgan and we talked about it, and earlier about how dangerous he's become, and it's going to be it's an awesome threat to have. And I don't know if it's going to pay, if he's going to have a deep shot in this game. I don't know, but just the threat of it is going to open up someone else to have, to catch the ball. Laporta, I'm expecting to have another big game in this one.
Yes. I mean, especially as of late, we've been getting J-Mo the ball, where earlier in the season, it was like, wasn't a guarantee. He might have a big play here or there. He had a couple games where he only had 1 or 2 catches or targets even. So it's nice that we've been able to feed him the ball more consistently.
I agree. So, big game. Super excited about it. Yeah, I know we said it a billion times, but man, I wish I could wake up tomorrow and I'd be going to the game. So you're going to be watching it at home, right, Jacob?
I'll be watching at home intently.
Right. So are you going to let Milo stay up? I know Milo's been watching the Lions games with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that up to Milo. He actually
Okay.
stayed up. So it was Monday was my birthday, so we had a day of fun anyway. And then he stayed up and watched the Lions and 49ers game with me. So that was fun. He was definitely into it. I told him, you probably need to go to bed, bud. And he was only in his room for a half hour or so before he came back out. It's like, you know what? Fine, sit here, watch the game with me. It's fun having somebody watch the game and root for the same team because JJ likes to trash on them.
Yeah, we at our house for the Monday night game, we had my son had 3 friends over, and they were downstairs, so there was 5 boys down there watching, and their stream was slightly ahead of ours, and so we knew when a big play was coming because they were going crazy. And when Kirby got, I think it was the second interception, I knew from their reaction how loud it was that they got a turnover. I equate it to like watching a baseball game, but you're not paying attention. You only hear the crowd, and like a really large play just happened based on
Right.
the crowd noise, and that's the way I knew. I could hear it down there. I was like, that has to be a turnover. That's not just an incompletion. They picked the ball, and sure enough, Kirby picked that ball. So, yeah, this is going to be an amazing night. We're blessed as Lions fans to be able to have this opportunity. I mean, we could look at it as like we're 14 wins and we don't have our division locked up. I told my son, if you're scared of this team right now, then how are you going to do in the playoffs? This is what you want. This is essentially the first week of the playoffs. I know that we're not eliminated if we're out, but you got to beat the best. To be the best, you got to beat the best. So, and I know Dan Campbell's saying those words to his team right now. They love this matchup. They love the opportunity they have. I love that it's in Detroit. I love that we have the home crowd. I think it's going to pay huge dividends for this team.
Right. That'll be a huge difference maker for us.
It will. All right, Jacob, let's get on with the grit picks.
Grit picks.
Jacob, you got the better of me this week, so I'm going to let you do the rundown here.
This week. I think it's the better of you almost every week, right?
You do.
All right. Seahawks at Bears. I picked the Seahawks. You picked the Bears. This was funny because as we were recording is when that game was happening. And we were talking about how much of a, bad game that it had been. It was only 6-3 at that point. It didn't get any better.
No.
That was the result. The Bears, did not utilize their timeouts, blew it there again at the end of the game. Awful football. And you had picked them to win. So, I don't know what you were thinking. Moving on, Saturday night, Arizona at Rams. We both picked the Rams. We were right there. And then Falcons at Commanders. I picked the Commanders and you picked the Falcons. Ended up being a pretty good game. The Commanders came out on top.
It was an awesome
So
game.
I'm 32-14 and you are 27-19.
Yeah. You're going to beat me this year. There's no way I can come back. So congratulations. Inaugural
Thank
season.
you.
You got me. So week 18, not much to pick this week. So the first game that we're going to pick is the Saturday night game, Bengals at Steelers. I'm going to go with the Steelers in this one. Bengals are going to fold. Who are you taking?
Yeah, this one's interesting because the Ravens play earlier that same day. If the Ravens lose, then the Steelers are playing for the division. But if the Ravens win, then the Steelers, they've already locked their playoff spot up. If the Ravens win, then they don't really have anything to go for.
Yep.
So they find themselves in a unique position too because, they're preparing to play as if they're playing for the division. And if they're not, do they bench anybody? Do they play the game any different? Whereas the Bengals, they have to win to keep their hopes alive. And, they're going to be bringing it no matter what. The Steelers came out on top the last time they played. So I think the Bengals are going to take this one.
All right, we're different there. So based on how the season's gone, you can put your money on the Bengals. All right. So we don't pick the winner of the Detroit or the Sunday night football game because it involves Detroit. But to switch it up, we are going to pick an over-under on something. Arif had in the interview said that there's going to be a lot of turnovers in this game. So we are going to go over or under 2.5 turnovers. That's combined between the two teams. Jacob, are you taking over or under 2.5 turnovers?
I'm actually going to take the under on this one. The stakes are much higher. I think they're going to have to try to play cleaner football. I hope that if it's the over, it's because Sam Darnold absolutely blew it and they just can't get it together. Yeah, I mean, Goff's been playing really well. I don't see them putting the ball in harm's way necessarily as much as Arif did, but I'm going to go under. How do you feel about that?
I'm going to stay with you. I'm going to go under the 2.5. So I think there's going to be 2, and I'm hoping they're both on Minnesota's side. But that's going to be the difference maker is at turnovers. And if
absolutely,
I'm hoping if it's high, I'm hoping it's equal or shades more towards the Lions' favor. All right, Jacob, it's time for Grit Guarantee.
It's time for the Grit Guarantee.
I'll let you go first.
Yeah, my guarantee is a simple one this week. Over under is set at 56.5, and I'm going to guarantee that we go over on that.
It's probably a pretty safe bet based on how the Lions defense has played lately, and we seem to always put 30 plus on Brian Flores over there at the Vikings. So yeah, it's pretty good. What do you think? What if I said the over under was 63.5? Would you go over or under that?
With how we've been playing and how everything's going, I think I would still say over. But the stakes are higher. This is, it's funny because like how we said with the Bills, like the stakes are higher. You hope the defense shows out a little more on both sides, and then it's going to be like a hard fought. And instead, it was just shot after shot after shot. The offenses weren't slowing down. So I think it would look more like that game. So I would still say over.
Okay. All right, good. Mine is going to be Amon-Ra has 10 plus catches in this game.
Okay.
10 or more is what I'm going to go with. In big games, you go to your money player. Amon-Ra's the guy. And I think especially if they send blitz, they're going to have some hot routes set up for Amon-Ra. And it's going to be important to stay ahead of the sticks. And Amon-Ra is going to be the guy. So that's what
you said 10 plus catches or targets?
10 plus catches. I think he's going to have 10 plus. So
it's just typically when he catches more than 10 passes, it's because we are not doing so well.
No, I think it's going to be the opposite this one.
Yeah.
I think they're going to target Amon-Ra. So
I hope you're right.
He's going to be our third down guy. And yeah, I have a feeling Amon-Ra is going to have.
Amon-Ra has a pretty good history against the Vikings. So
he does.
I can see that.
And that's why I kind of went that way. So,
yep.
Well, Jacob, I mean, hopefully Monday when we're recording next, we're very, very happy. And then we can go through possible playoff scenarios of who we're going to play. If not, we're going to know who we're going to play the following weekend, and we'll get ready for that.
And we'll be ready.
Yeah, we'll be ready either way. So, all right, Jacob, I hope you feel better. I know you're not feeling really well.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So, all right, for Jacob, I'm Jason. Let's go Lions.